Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Oklahoma History Center. It's always good when we have a crowd like this because we built this building, the Oklahoma History Center, to be not just a place to collect, preserve, and share history, but as a place to come together as a community to celebrate our heritage. And tonight we are here to celebrate the life and legacy of Bob Wills, an American treasure, a person who made music that has moved generations, a cornerstone of a new project that we are developing in Tulsa called the OKPOP. Well, the theme of that entire museum is Crossroads of Creativity. And who better than Bob Wills to represent Crossroads of Creativity? His heritage comes from across the country. His music styles come from every genre. He shared that music with audiences throughout his lifetime, still moving people today with his music. Well, to take advantage of his music, his legacy, we will develop this new museum that will be led by a young man who came to this organization almost 20 years ago, helped us build a history center, and just got back from 2 weeks in Los Angeles interviewing people who are donating their collections, their talent, their energy to this effort. And that is the man who will introduce our musical guest, Jeff Moore.
Thank you all for coming this evening. It's great to be able to share Oklahoma history in a world-class facility. And obviously the Oklahoma History Center is a world-class facility. And Oklahoma has many world-class stories. But in order for a museum to be successful, we have to have the world-class collections that tell those world-class stories. And tonight we celebrate individuals that have collected the stories of Bob Wills. Some of them were family members, some of them were fans, and without those collections, we can't do our job as historians and museum professionals. So I'd like to thank the Bob Wills Heritage Foundation, and the Bob Wills Estate, Carolyn Wills and Andrea Ruby. Now this evening's going to be fun because what we're going to be able to do is mix a little bit of the music and a little bit of the story. So you're going to be entertained, but you're going to learn something at the same time. But we are going to start this evening off with the kickoff of a world tour. The Red Dirt Rangers have been around for 25 years, and tonight is the first concert on their 25th anniversary world tour of Oklahoma. The Red Dirt Rangers. And we have a special guest. We have the second greatest fiddle player from Oklahoma. Byron, I only have to say this because Bob's daughter's here, okay? Byron Berline.
Fix his mandolin again.
Yes.
Don't worry about it, it's old. Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
the world I do. Yes, I love Corina. Tell the world I do. Just a little more love and let your heart be true. Here we go. Where you been so long? Corina, Corina, where you been so long? I ain't had no loving since you've been gone. How about it, boys? Goodbye, Corina, well, fairly well. When I get back, bang, bang, Lord, you never can tell. We were so heavily influenced by really two guys, Woody Guthrie, of course, and Bob Wills. Those are the things that make up Red Dirt music, and we're going to do a few originals for you. Here's one that was definitely influenced by Bob. Without my baby, I'm lonely. Without my baby, I'm blue. Without my baby, I got nothing. I got nothing to lose. Without my baby, I'm breaking one piece at a time. Without my baby, I'm slowly going out of my mind. There was a time we were happy in our little home. Then I started out rambling and I started to roam. Somehow we lost our connection. No reason or rhyme. Without my baby, I'm slowly going out of my mind. Going Oh, tonight in the bar alone I'm sitting, apart from the heartaches and the tears, while scenes from the past rise before me. Oh, I'm watching the bubbles in my beer, all visions of someone who loved me bring a long silent tear to my eyes. I know that my life's been a failure, 'cause I'm watching the bubbles in my beer. How about it, Randy? It is great to honor Bob Wills. He's just a treasure, and we're so glad to have him, from here in Oklahoma. Came from Texas, but we know where Western Swing was born. It was right in the town of Tulsa and Oklahoma City. But here's and I told you earlier how we tied Bob Wills and Woody Guthrie, together. And here's a Woody Guthrie song that Bob Wills recorded and did. It's called Oklahoma Hills. Months have come and gone since I wandered from my home to those Oklahoma hills where I was born. Yeah. Been an age and I've been turned, many lessons I have learned. Well, and I know it's in those hills that I belong. Way down yonder on the Indian Nation, gonna ride my pony on a reservation. Oklahoma hills where I was born. Way down yonder on the Indian Nation, the cowboy's life is my occupation. Oklahoma hills where I was born. Well, my life has turned a page in the land of the great Osage. From that day I rode my pony through the draw, where the oak and blackjack trees are in the mellow red dirt breeze. I kissed the sweetest girls I ever saw. Oh yeah. Way down yonder on the Indian Nation, gonna ride my pony on a reservation. Oklahoma hills where I was born. Way down yonder on the Indian Nation, the cowboy's life is my occupation. Oklahoma hills where I was born. How about it, Byron? where I was born. Where the black old rosy flows and that snow-white cotton grows. Yeah, I know it's in those hills that I belong. Way down yonder on the Indian Nation, gonna ride my pony on a reservation. Oklahoma hills where I was born. Way down yonder on the Indian Nation, the cowboy's life is my occupation. Oklahoma hills where I was born. Oh, if it was Oklahoma hills where I was born. I said it was Oklahoma hills where I was born.
River Center, man.
Well, that goes in that number right there.
I think that's in the Hank Thompson version.
That's right. See if you recognize this one here. If I start filming myself.
you, everyone. We'll be right back.
While they're setting up the chairs, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Bob Blackburn. I'm from the Historical Society. I've probably given about 3,000 speeches over 36 years here at the Historical Society, so I feel like I know each of you, and I think I probably do know most of you, but welcome again. Before we get to the next part of the program tonight, I wanted to thank the young band who was here when some of you started arriving, known as Ida Bell. the lead singer of Ida Bell, works in our museum store. Are the band members still here from Ida Bell? Dan, do you know? If you are, I don't see them. But anyway, want to thank them for coming. They volunteered tonight to help us with this event. And then secondly, I don't like to put this off until last because too often I get caught up into the emotion. I enjoy these programs just as much as each of you do, so I get caught up in the emotion. But we could not do events like this without an incredible staff here. We have the building. Fortunately, we have the staff. But Larry Odell and his staff, and Dan Provost, and will all of the OHS staff members please raise your hand? Larry, step out here. Dan, back here. My assistant, Nicole. Cindy Lou is a genius. But anyway, it's good to have good people at your side when you decide to do something big. And we tend to dream big around here. Well, tonight we've had these wonderful musicians sharing with us the musical legacy of Bob Wills. Not only his own music, but the impact he's had on bands and music since that time. But we also want to share the story of the man, the wife, the family behind the music. We are different from a Hall of Fame. A Hall of Fame will celebrate the music, and it pretty much stops there. What did they do? When did they do it? Where did they do it? And that's pretty much the story. It's celebrating the art. What makes us different is that we like to celebrate the art because that is shared memory with people. We can draw you in the door with the shared memory of the art, but then we want to share the story of the people, of migrating to the West, growing up on a cotton farm, fighting poverty, listening to the music in the cotton patch, listening to this new brand of music on the radio, of hearing the big band sound, and then getting married and raising a family. That's the story that we want to tell, the story of Bob and Betty Wills. Well, with us tonight is a member of that family, and I'll introduce more about her in a minute when she gets up on the stage, but let's welcome the daughter of Bob and Betty Wills, Carolyn Wills. Well, I met Carolyn I should have asked Jeff. Time is compressing about 2010. We were working with the George Kaiser Family Foundation in Tulsa on trying to do this new museum in Tulsa. Of course, we were doing exhibits here. At the time, we had just done an exhibit on the history of rock and roll. We were doing one on country music. Hank Thompson, Jim Halsey, the agent, and Roy Clark, and all of this was underway when I got a call one day from Liz Hunt, who was here with us today, a friend who was in Tulsa. She said, "Bob, I want you to come to a dinner to meet some people." So I got to Tulsa, I was at the Summit Club, and we sat around a table. And I noticed, of course, in the museum community, we all know each other. There were probably 5 or 6 museums represented around the table that night. And we met Carolyn for the first time, Andrea, who's here tonight, and some other friends. And as we went around the table, each person shared their dream of what they were trying to do with their own museum. And it was clear that Carolyn and the foundation were looking for a home for the Bob Wills family collection, where to plant the seeds from the foundation to preserve and to share the legacy of Bob Wills. And we went around the room, and I finally said, well, we've got this dream of a museum in the Brady Arts District of Tulsa where we can celebrate Crossroads of Creativity, what we have already done, not just what we were saying we would do. We talked about the collections that already come in, the people who have stepped up to help us over the years. And that sunk in. The confidence in this institution, this place, our legislators who are here tonight, our board of directors, our staff, worked. And over the next year, we talked many times. Finally, reached an agreement. Carolyn and the family and the foundation would donate the Bob Wills family collection to the Oklahoma Historical Society for the OKPOP Museum. Well, since then, we've become friends. Some of the staff goes to Turkey, Texas. with Carolyn every summer to celebrate the Bob Wills Festival. Carolyn has come up here many times to help us with the collections and reaching out to others. And tonight, she's got a slideshow, and she is going to share some of her memories of growing up with Bob and Betty, the personal side behind the music. Carolyn, it's great to have you tonight. And growing up with Bob and Betty was a great experience for you. You moved a lot. Bob was always on the move, always busy. He was probably a workaholic. He had to be working and singing and sharing his music. Why don't you share some of the stories that you collected?
I would be happy to, and thank you, Dr. Blackburn. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I don't need to tell you that Bob Wills was a musician, a composer, a charismatic performer. He started a rodeo. He loved horses. He had ranches and dance halls. And thankfully, with people like Dr. Blackburn and this wonderful band tonight, his legacy is continuing. He also was a father, and so I hope tonight to share some of that perspective. We didn't take a lot of pictures in my family, so don't worry, this won't go on forever. It's pretty quick. It all started at actually King's Dancing Academy when a young woman named Betty Lou Anderson was treated to her first dance with my great Aunt Pearl, her Aunt Pearl, who lived in downtown Tulsa and worked at Seidenbach's. And she was a familiar, Aunt Pearl, was a familiar face at Kane's. So she took Betty Lou to the dance. My father spotted her across the room, asked Mrs. Atkins if she would introduce her young guest, and so Aunt Pearl took her up to the stage. He leaned over and asked her what song she would like to play, or she would like him to play for her, and she got so flustered she couldn't think of any Bob Wills songs, so she asked for You Are My Sunshine. And somehow he managed to play it, and they sang the words. So that was the beginning of 33 years of marriage and 4 children. Actually, I forgot the slides. So this is a picture of Bob and Betty. She's on her horse Whirlaway, and he's on his favorite horse, Pumpkin. And next slide. This is kind of the way I think of them, a very romantic couple. The story behind the photo of her here is they had her photo taken professionally, and then one day they were walking down the street, and what do you know, the pictures were in the photographer's window to help him make sales, and my father said, "Oh, we're not having that." So he went in and bought all the negatives and all the pictures, and they weren't in the store anymore. And this is actually very special to me. This was the Triple B Ranch. This is where we lived starting in 1943. This was what I've heard so much in my life was actually a fulfillment of my father's dream. He always wanted a place where he could race horses, he could be with his family, and the band could live close. And in fact, he would have liked everyone to just live on a ranch together. He actually decided during this time that all the band members needed to ride horses. Some of them had never been on one, and so that was a trip. But something that has just happened a few weeks ago, apparently the structure, the ranch house, still exists, and the city of Fresno are taking steps to try to preserve it. And so I've been helping with that, and it's very personal to me because this is the place I was born, 1946, and we didn't make it to the hospital. So the story growing up was always that my father delivered me. Well, about a year ago, I actually found a letter that my mother had written to my great Aunt Pearl describing what happened that night. And she said her mother, my grandmother, and Bob were running around trying to find help. Bob put his hat on, it was nighttime, and she never saw them. we were born alone, and when he came back, they both said they thought each of them had lost 10 pounds, and they never wanted to go through the experience again. So this is the Triple B Ranch, and it was in Fresno. It had been not a ranch, but a place that had an orange grove. So, of course, he bought it, immediately mowed down all the orange trees to everybody's dismay, brought in 7 stallions and 40 top brood mares, and he was very happy. Well, the dream changed when an opportunity arose in, wanted to tell you that obviously the style was passed on for because this is how we were dressed. That's my brother and that's me. And to make the point that family home was always very, very important to my father. This is his mother and father, who we knew as Big Ma and Daddy Papa. And then the top photo are his brothers, my uncle, my Uncle Billy Jack, Luther J, Johnny Lee, and my father, and then Daddy Papa on the end. And then the aunts, oh boy, those are now, Aunt Helen, Eloise, Ruby, Olga, and Lorraine. And a lot of people would say Aunt Lorraine and I look alike. Then, he was very happy, and then an opportunity arose to purchase the old Aragon Ballroom in Sacramento. And it was thought that it was just too good of an opportunity to pass. A lot of the band members even supported, how could we not want to do this? So he held on to the Triple B for a while, but he bought the old Aragon, renamed it Wills Point. It was actually 6 acres of an Olympic-sized swimming pool, a park, apartments, and this huge dance hall. And I was old enough at that point, I remember it. I remember my mother deciding to paint the swimming pool and ending up with a 3rd-degree burn. But and that was kind of her spirit. If it needed to be done, she would do it. But it was the one time where I felt closer to the music. I should have told you from the beginning that we really weren't raised in the music. He thought that was kind of a rough business, especially for little chauvinistic, especially for women. And it kind of, I think it was my mother's commitment to make it a separate world so he would have a home to go to. And I think that's one reason their marriage survived. So when we were at Wills Point, it was a time where, especially my brother and I would go play. They had this pink powder they would put on the floor that smelled so good, and it was before a dance, and you could go in and slide across the floor, and those are the memories I had. Then we spent some time. He made the decision to go back to Oklahoma City, and also, if you can see the dates, you're going to see that we would sometimes live in a city 2 or 3 times. So it was growing up literally on Route 66. So we went back to Oklahoma City because, again, he was hoping that he would have a central place where he could be home more. Well, as soon as he got there, it was clear that California still wanted him to play, and so he was gone a lot. So then the next step was another opportunity to purchase the ranch house in Dallas. And so we ended up moving to Dallas. That was kind of a phenomenal place. He had it completely redone, and he had silver dollars inlaid on the bar. He had stalls made so that he could actually have his horses there so people could visit them. And this next photo is my absolute favorite, because when I think what it must have taken to ride a stallion through the crowd, up on a stage in front of a band, and wave to people, it's him. This is the way I see him. And when we were in Dallas, there was some publicity. This is a publicity shot, and looks like a lot of fun. And then here's one of the rare times when he's home and we're actually doing something that families do. We were having lunch with some friends. My sister is the little one, Diane Wills. Diane Wills Malone. She is the mother of my niece Andrea, who's here, and she owns Twin Fiddles Ranch and has taken his love of horses, and that's her passion. And then this is when we lived in Abilene, and this was my all-time favorite house because it was a 2-story red brick traditional, and I just thought we were leave it to Beaver, I guess. And I got to have my own bedroom upstairs. It was tiny, and it actually had a balcony. And this is my father. You know, we used to say, how many fathers go to work, and first they have to put their makeup on, and because he did have pancake makeup, and he would smell of Old Spice, and so those are some of my memories. These are some family shots. The one on, well, I'm not sure which side it's on for you, the left, is our family with the lady on the right is my grandmother, my mother's mother, Grace. And the other photo is us spending time with Roy Parnell, who was a dear friend. And he's the father of Leroy Parnell and Rob Roy Parnell and Cabby Jane. And we're still in touch with him for all these years. And then, we're getting toward the later years, and we did spend some time in Tulsa again, and then to Las Vegas, because this is kind of the era where he wasn't always doing dances. This was more like concerts in Las Vegas. And we were there for, I think, at least a couple of years. He started at the Showboat and then moved to the Golden Nugget. And we were still too young. We couldn't go in, but we could stand out on the sidewalk and watch him perform. And Wayne Newton was his brother were the warm-up band. And so Wayne Newton was about my age, and I just thought he was so cute, and so that was the treat of Las Vegas. And also that was the experience, where we had a father who actually would go to work, although he went to work at night, but he would come back the next day, so it was like a regular job. And this is them going out in Las Vegas. The coat that my mother's wearing was a Christmas gift from him. And obviously we're getting into some of the later years. This is them in 1963 in Fort Worth. And this was a very special evening. This was his 60th birthday celebration. It was held at Dewey Groom's Longhorn Ballroom, which had been the ranch house. And this is the family side. We were getting to watch him, and so we were actually at a dance, and we got to see him perform. And another very special night. This is when he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. The only kind of twist here is Carl Johnson was his business associate, and for some reason, everybody decided to make it a big secret. So my mother didn't go. She actually got the call that night to say, well, guess what? And then she called me. I was in college and in Tulsa, and she was in Fort Worth, and she said, watch television tonight. And we know how he was amazingly humble. I'm sure a lot of you know that. And the fact, what you're seeing here is really the essence of that, when he would take his hat off and, and thank everyone. And this was getting really close to when he had his first stroke. And in fact, he had kind of a long illness, about 7 years. My mother never left his side. In fact, she drove him from Fort Worth to California to Merle Haggard's home, where Merle helped gather all the Texas Playboys again, and they produced the album For the Last Time. My father couldn't speak very well, but he was there, and he directed, and the band knew it. He could point, and they knew what he meant. Oh, and that was my wedding day, too. That was another story. So what started it all, I guess, made it work. 33 years, 4 children, and now where I'm on a mission. My niece and some wonderful people on the board of the Bob Wills Heritage Foundation are hoping to keep this legacy alive. It truly is an American story, an American treasure. I love the music, but I have to say I am a story person, and I just love everything he represents. I truly think he kind of was at the roots of Western chic because of his style. So I thank you very much. The next thing we're going to do is show you a 3-minute video from the Grammy. He was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Grammy at the Grammy Awards in 2007. And a weird thing that happened, my sister Diane was supposed to go, and then her daughter had to go into early labor, and so she couldn't. And my niece, her other daughter, Andrea, and I stepped forward. We ran and got the gowns. We stayed at the Biltmore. We did the red carpet. It was all so amazing, but the absolute most amazing thing was the audience that one by one came up and were sharing what I call Bob stories. Sorry, I'm breaking it. In that instance, you know, I thought, oh my gosh, we need to do something. You know, this is part of our country, our history. And so we came back, we created the Bob Wills Heritage Foundation. Our board is so privileged to have Dr. Charles Townsend. Thank goodness he wrote the biography, the Bible. And we have Dwight Adair, who is here tonight, who has had BobWills.com for many years, and we've all worked together. We're about to launch, I think it'll be within the next 2 weeks, a brand new version of BobWills.com. And let me go here. Liz Hunt is from Tulsa. She's on our board. She is absolutely a star public relations person and very involved in the city of Tulsa and in the small business of the state of Oklahoma. And I told you about Andrea. You should stand up. This is Andrea Ruby. And she is a rock. She's amazing. She's very, very involved in the Bob Wills Day in Turkey. We're about to go to the 42nd Bob Wills Day. And she loves the music, she loves to dance, and she is the future. And let me think, I forgot Larry Mocha, who is in Tulsa, and oh my goodness, what a supporter. He owns a company called ASCO. We went to high school together. He's the one who said, Carolyn, I don't think you get it. Bob Wills is in the culture here. I think it's even different than Texas. And I have to tell you, every time we come here, it's getting harder for me to go back to Texas because he's right. And the rest of the board, my sister, Diane Wills Malone, and about to join us is her husband, Dick Malone. And last but not least, David Strickland, Dr. Strickland. He's the son of Al Strickland, piano pounder, and a dear friend of mine, and wait till you see the website. He's written the history of the music, and it's very special. So thank you very much. This has been wonderful.
Please watch the video.
Band leader, fiddler, singer, and 2007 Lifetime Achievement Grammy honoree, Bob Wills is the once and future king of Western swing. Recording from 1932 to 1973, Wills and his Texas Playboys created such classics as San Antonio Rose, Take Me Back to Tulsa, Bubbles in My Beer, Cherokee Maiden, Steel Guitar Rag, and hundreds more.
Watching the bubbles in my beer. But come in, Tommy, give us the lowdown on it.
A third-generation Texas fiddler, James Robert Wills was born March 6, 1905, on a small farm near Cossie, southeast of Waco. At age 10, he played his first dance, and by his 20s, was a full-time musician. he formed the Texas Playboys in 1934, blending his family's country traditions with the blues he'd learned picking cotton alongside African-American field hands.
Boys, that Lone Star rag.
To that musical melting pot, Wills added European polkas, gospel quartets, Mexican mariachi ballads, hot jazz, and sweet big band tunes. Western swing was born. No other band leader in American music has equaled Wills for sheer variety of sounds and styles, as the Texas Playboys morphed from Texas string band to horn-driven big band to mid-sized group, juggling jazz and honky-tonk country. The one constant was Wills, standing tall in his signature Stetson, tailored Western suits, custom cowboy boots, and ever-present cigar. He led the Playboys on record as if on stage, gleefully hollering at the hottest licks, name-checking favorite soloists.
Come in, Tommy.
Deep within my heart lies a melody, a song.
His asides made stars of singer Tommy Duncan, steel guitarist Leon McAuliffe, fiddler Johnny Gimble, and mandolinist Tiny Moore. Although he never considered himself a country musician, he broke the Grand Ole Opry's long-standing ban on drums and helped make the steel guitar a Nashville mainstay. He died in 1975 at age 69. But as Waylon Jennings sang, Bob Wills is still the king. Along with Jennings, Wills inspired countless mainstream country stars from Ernest Tubb to Brad Paisley, while Western swing revivalists like Asleep at the Wheel and Hot Club of Cowtown keep Bob Wills' sound alive for new generations. Long live the king.
Carolyn, thank you for joining us tonight, sharing the stories. And as a representative of the Oklahoma Historical Society, the state of Oklahoma, the people of Oklahoma, thank you for all you're doing to help us share this with the rest of the world. Now let's welcome back for another musical set, the Red Dirt Rangers and Byron Berline. Welcome back, boys.
Bob Wills is still the king.
wonderful things. Well, I guess it is true for me and for you, 'cause time changes everything. Well, you can change the name of an old song, rearrange it and make it swing. I thought nothing could stop me from loving you, but time changes everything. Byron Berline, one more time. Much thanks to the Wills family. Thanks, guys. We love you.
Yes. Here's one of our tunes that was definitely influenced by Bob. We love Honky Tonk, and I know he did too. It's called Honky Tonk History. Done to me. She broke my heart, set me free. I'm making my own honky tonk history. The honky tonk history. Oh, those too new to believe I'm the saddest man in honky tonk history. How about it, Randy? God love him. Inspired by a box of matches. It's called Blue Diamond. 1, 2,
She can strike anywhere. A man could get burned, and she won't even care. For only one moment, you can stand in her light. She's a blue diamond, just a flash in the night. She can light up your candle, then she'll burn your house down. You're playing with fire when she's hanging around. She's a blue diamond, she can strike anywhere. A man could get burned, and she won't even care. No match made in heaven could ever burn you so fast. She'll strike just like lightning, but she's too hot to last. She can light up your candle, then she'll burn your house down. You're playing with fire when she's hanging around. She's a blue diamond, she could strike anywhere. A man could get burned, and she won't even care. She's a blue diamond, she can strike anywhere. A man could get burned, and she won't even care.
country and we sing a brand new song. Everyone will be there and we all agree. It's an old-time rockin' country gospel bluegrass jamboree. Just come on down to the party, way out in the country. Come on down, let your soul run free. Everyone will be there and we all agree. It's an old-time rockin' country gospel bluegrass jamboree. Oh, take it away, Randy. Frankie brought his mandolin, Tom brought his guitar, Lucky brought his girlfriend, but he didn't get too far. Jenny brought her fiddle and sang Sweet Harmony. It's an old-time rockin' country gospel bluegrass jamboree. Just come on down to the party, way out in the country. Come on down and let your soul run free. Everyone will be there and we all agree. It's an old-time rockin' country gospel bluegrass jamboree. It's an old-time rockin' country gospel bluegrass jamboree. It's an old-time rockin' country gospel bluegrass jamboree.
One more Bob song in this set. This was written by the great Cindy Walker. You guys remember Cindy? She wrote a lot of the great songs. I'm sure you knew her. And I actually got to hear her on a phone call. She called the Canes Ballroom at a Bob Wills birthday party, a celebration. She was in her 90s, and it was great to hear from her. What a great songwriter she was. But she wrote this one right here. It's called Bubbles in My Beer.
Apart from the laughter and the tears, while the scenes from the past rise before me. Oh, I'm watching the bubbles in my beer. Oh, visions of someone who loved me brings a long silent tear to my eye, and I know that my life's been a failure when I'm watching the bubbles in my beer. Oh, yes!
broken, and those golden chances to pass me by, and the dreams that I've made, oh, they're as empty as the bubbles in my beer. Yes, they're as empty as the bubbles in my beer. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Before we do an encore, and we will have an encore in a minute, is that we have a little special part of the program here. Well, part of what we do here is to collect, preserve, and share the story of Bob Wills and others who have been part of this creative process of popular culture and art in Oklahoma. And we've had scholars in the state who have collected the story of Bob Wills, in particular Guy Logston on our board of directors, John Woolley, who's here with us tonight, who's writing a book on Kane's Ballroom, and others. But there's one gentleman who's with us tonight. It's a special guest. He has been collecting, preserving, and sharing the story of Bob Wills for 75 years. He received his PhD in history from the University of Wisconsin, where he was only one generation of professors removed from Frederick Jackson Turner. He wrote the biography of Bob Wills in 1975, published by the University of Illinois Press, still in print today. He is a retired professor from West Texas A&M University in Texas. He's an authority not only on Bob Wills, Western swing, music in the American West, but rodeo culture. He was a rodeo announcer for several years. Let's welcome the collector of Bob Wills' story, Dr. Charles Townsend. Dr. Townsend, I think this book probably brings back many fond memories of doing the research of Bob Wills.
Incidentally, that photograph was on the original San Antonio Rose. That was in the circle and all. So they sort of took that from that Irving Berlin publication of Bob Wills' San Antonio Road.
Well, I'd like to recommend this. I'm sure Dr. Townsend would appreciate the royalties, but each of you should go out and buy a copy of this. When I first read this, I realized that Bob Wills was not a country and Western music performer. He was a jazz performer. He took in so many styles, and Dr. Townsend's book allowed me to understand the man and his music. Dr. Townsend, let's start, though. We're here in Oklahoma City tonight. So many people think of Tulsa and the Kane's Ballroom and KVOO as the home of Bob Wills in Oklahoma, but he actually started in Oklahoma City. Tell us a little bit about the Oklahoma City connection.
Before I answer that question, there's a fellow here that I'd like to pay a little tribute to. I went to, and I don't think there would have been a book, certainly as good a book, bragging, but they say if it's not a lie, it's good, you're not bragging. But I'd started writing this book and I'd done all the research. People said, well, who's going to publish it? And I said, I don't know, I'm going to write the book. Well, I went to the post office one morning and opened my box, and there was a letter from the University of Illinois Press. And I thought, I wonder what they're selling now. Some new textbook or whatever. And it's a very brief letter, but a history-making letter. And it said, Dear Professor Townsend, Guy Logston tells us you're writing a book on Bob Wills. We want to publish it. They haven't seen anything, but I would not have gotten, I think, guy was very close to the folklorist at the University of Illinois and other places. And that letter introduced me to these people, and the result was the book. So I've always wanted to pay tribute to Guy Logston and his wife on his home turf. So Guy, would you stand? Please do that. And this is my way of saying
Phyllis, you too.
Thank you, Guy, and his wife. And I would stand, but this thing's a little shaky. Okay, Guy, thank you so much. And to answer that question, Bob was so funny, the way he looked on life. Bob didn't do all of these things that we talk about in the book, or that we talk about here tonight. When he's put into the Hall of Fame in Nashville, or when he was put in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or when he got the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Grammys. All Bob Wills was trying to do was survive, because it was really a rough time. A song he did called Up, and it kind of said it all. But Bob was raised in what you call the cotton culture. And he had, as a little boy, picked cotton down in East Texas in what we call the Black Belt, not black land, but the black people there that he grew up with. Then he moved to West Texas, over in Hall County, and they still pick cotton and whatever. So when he got to Fort Worth, started the Light Cross Doughboys and all of that, then one fall he said there's going to be a lot of money down around Waco. Let's move down there. They're going to start picking cotton. You know, he thought that was the only way people ever make money. So he moved down there, and they very successful there on radio station WACO. And but he said, fellas, he said, and he called himself the Playboys at that time, and I think it was a good name. I see you missed that. You'll catch on here a little, but it was a good name. So he said, we better go up into Oklahoma. They pick cotton a little later. So he gathered up his boys, and he had 5 or 6 members of the band at that time, and he came to Oklahoma. And here's where he really intended to stay, and he came to Oklahoma City, and the Skirvin Tower Hotel was the home of WKY. And so Bob came there and played his first dance out of there. That's the reason he wanted to be on radio, to publicize his dances, at El Reno. And Everett Stover, who had been his announcer down in Waco, Bob said, I want you to go with me. Bob wanted Everett Stover to come as his announcer, but he thought he wanted to play trumpet. He played trumpet in the New Orleans Symphony. So when Bob showed up at El Reno, here was Everett Stover with the trumpet. I said, Bob, what did you do? He said, well, I had to let him do something. So I gave him a solo or two, but he stayed on the air only 2 weeks at WKY. Times were hard, not just for Bob, but for WKY and everybody else. And I have a postcard where they wrote him and said, Bob, we're going to have to let you go. W. Leo Daniels says that he'll bring his great program on to our station if we'll get rid of you. So Bob had to get off the station, and then somebody said, you know, they got a new station that's really doing well up there in Tulsa called KVOO. So O.W. Mayo, who had run a service station in Waco, had become his business manager, and he and Bob went up to Tulsa and got on W.G. Skelly on the station, and they put Bob on a sustaining basis. That means that they furnish the station, you furnish the music, and if you can sell something, then it's yours. So that was the really beginning of the golden age of Bob Wills. But he did start right here, and listen, he never did quit coming to Oklahoma City. He finally, every Tuesday night, and I wish you had preserved it over there in Bricktown, and what a wonderful thing that is historically, but it's the old Trianon Ballroom. And I bet some of you have been there, but I know you've got wives now, you know what I mean? But in either case, I'll not ask for a show of hands. But anyway, he played there every Tuesday night. And that was when he influenced people like Charlie Christian, who was later a great guitarist with Benny Goodman and others. But that was the golden age. Here's what you might say about Western swing or Bob Wills music. You know, really, there is no Western swing without Bob Wills. Bob Wills is Western swing. Somebody asked Jerome Kern one time, said, what's the place of Irving Berlin in American music? And Jerome Kern says, he has no place in American music. He is American music. And Bob Wills is certainly Western swing. And what we might say is Western swing was born. You saw that video a while ago when Bob Wills played his first dance near Turkey, Texas. That was when Western swing was born. He was already swinging a fiddle band. And you might say Fort Worth was the nursery. It picked up after the new birth of the music. But when he came to Oklahoma, that's when it matured.
Great segue. I've asked Dr. Townsend to tell you a little bit about his experience with Bob Wills, of interviewing the Playboys, others in the music industry when Mr. Wills was still alive. And he has accumulated quite a collection. Will you kind of tell us about the genesis of your research and the collections that you have accumulated?
Well, of course, someone asked me today when we made a TV show, they said, when did you get interested in Bob Wills? I said, I can't remember when I wasn't. I'm really not old enough to have been doing research. He said 75 years, but I started when I was about 5, so you can figure my age. And I began to buy his music. My dad died. I was an orphan. I shined shoes as a boy in Nocona, Texas. But I always had a little money. A shine boy could always have some money. So when a new Bob Wills record would come out, I would go and buy it. I remember when some of those old OK and Vocalion things were put on Columbia, like Osage Stomp and some of those great old tunes. I'd run and buy it. So I began the collection there earlier. And then when I started really thinking about doing the book on Bob Wills, I guess it was at the great University of Wisconsin in Madison. There's something liberating about that great university. If Abraham Lincoln freed the slave, then the University of Wisconsin emancipated my mind to realize that music and culture and art and the cattle industry and whatever, they're just as much a part of history as wars and diplomacy and whatever. So in a seminar there one time, in Merle Curdy's seminar, and Merle was, or I should say Mr. Curdy, he was Frederick Jackson Turner's last PhD. Turner had been educated at Wisconsin and then had gone to Harvard, and he had trained at Merle there. So I'm kind of a grandson of Frederick Jackson Turner, but I was in seminar that day, and they're interested in everything there. I didn't know what great history was. They might have the aesthetics of Frank Lloyd Wright architecture on one paper. Next one would be something on the Puritans, or something on Jonathan Edwards, or something on the Pentecostal church in Chicago, or whatever. And I was writing on Samuel Adams. And I know some of you are chuckling there. You've probably been drinking it. I would tell you what Sarah Palin said here a while back. She said, you people need to quit drinking Sam Adams and start living like Sam Adams. So I was writing on the thought of Sam Adams, and I thought that day I was sitting there and I thought, everything is interested here. They're interested in everything. And I said to myself that day, and when I speak to myself, it's a very intelligent conversation with two wonderful people together. And so I said, why not write on Bing Crosby? I'd loved him all my life. What about Bob Wills? I'd loved him since I was a boy. Why not write on him? Well, I didn't do anything about it until I came back and had a research grant and decided to go through Turkey, Texas. I remember Bob had said, I always had to play that old tune, Spanish two-step, Big Taters from the Sandyland, for old Doc Garner in Turkey, Texas. So I called the head band down at Texas Tech. They had the money for the research. I thought, I'm taking a chance and I may lose my job. I've been making a lot of money doing research on whatever thing, rodeo, cowboys, cattlemen. They said, we want you to go over to the 4-6s in Guthrie and interview George Humphrey. He'd been the foreman there for 38 years. So I thought, uh-oh. And I remembered Bob had said, I played this song in good old Turkey, Texas. So I thought I'm going to take a chance and see if they're as open as I'd like them to be. So I called Sylvan. I said, Sylvan Dunn passed away a couple of years ago. I said, Sylvan, I'm going through Turkey, Texas. How about I do some research on Bob Wills? I'd have told my wife I was going to do it anyway, because I said that's how committed I was to it, that I would do that research and put it up. I said, society's not sophisticated enough now to appreciate Bob Wills, but one day they will. And when they do, I don't want it to be lost. So that's how committed I was. So what Sylvan said, my Bud, he always called me Bud. He said, Bud, Bob Wills, when I was at the University of Texas, was our hero. You do all the research you can. Well, later I got a letter from a historical society over here in Claremore, Oklahoma. And they wanted me to write an article. Well, I started writing, and I could do 100 pages. And I said, Mary, I'm not going to give this away as an article. I'll write a book. So I started writing the book. And Carolyn said she thought she'd just stay here in Oklahoma. Somebody asked me today, did you ever live in Oklahoma? Yes. I lived here while I was doing the Bob Wills book. I tell you, we wore out an Airstream trailer, a pickup, and an Oldsmobile. We go every weekend and I interviewed everybody that was alive, and in Oklahoma City too, and made all these tapes and made all of these interviews, and that's where the big research. Well, and every one of them I'd gather up all their pictures. And I interviewed all of Bob Wills' family, interviewed every member of that family, including Big Mama, what they call her, Aunt, Uncle John and Aunt, your grandmother. Big Mom. And I even got to interview her. She was in bad shape by that time, but only Olga. I didn't interview and have tapes with all of them. And all of the Playboys. And incidentally, Mr. Blackburn, nearly everybody of the musicians that I interviewed are all gone now. I don't know of a one of them except maybe Johnny Gimble and a few others that are left. But I picked up pictures, I picked up scrapbooks, and then finally, Betty was so protective of Bob that I was in Tulsa one time interviewing Johnny Lee. I was in his Western wear store, and I said, Johnny Lee, I said, I'd love to interview Bob. And he said, well, why in the hell don't you? And I said, well, Betty, I didn't know, I just knew, everybody knew her, said she's protective. She'll never let you talk to him. And he said, give her a call. He needs to talk to somebody. And I said, oh, no. I looked at that phone. And I knew if I called and she said no, that was it. And it doesn't look good if you write a book on someone and they're living. You see, you could do it in the past, but I knew so I called. And so Betty said, well, Dr. Townsend, when can you be here? I said, now it's snowing in Tulsa. Oh, it's terrible, all the way to Fort Worth. But we drove all night, and I didn't sleep all night because I didn't want to oversleep. I could only see him a couple hours a day. We went in to interview Bob, and I was afraid one recorder wouldn't work. So we took 2 of those great big old reel-to-reels with one of my twins holding it over his head and one on the other. And it looked like NBC News or Fox News or someone was, I guess it scared Bob there. But he was so gracious, and in a little while, Betty said, Dr. Townsend, would you leave the room? So I left the room, didn't know what was wrong. And in about 2 or 3 minutes, Bob couldn't make a decision. And when he did, it was usually right. I hope this book proves it right. Betty came out to me and Mary, and Bob said, you can do the book. And so I went in, and Bob and Betty opened their doors after that. I was there every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter, every weekend. And they were so gracious, and I spent many, many hours one-on-one. How would you like to have been able to do that? Just Bob Wills and I. And I don't think Bob wanted a book. Bob was so humble, he didn't even think he deserved a book. Smokey Davis summed up Bob Wills more than any man. That was his drummer. He said, Doc, Bob Wills is the humblest man I ever knew. Bob never knew of his greatness. I am happy to say that my manuscript was finished before Bob had his last stroke, and I went over the whole thing with him. And I said, Bob, what do you think? He said, 100%. He couldn't, 100%. Well, ever since then, everything's been 100% with us, but all the interviews and all of the memorabilia and everything I picked up, not just on Bob Wills, but collateral things I have in this great collection of mine. And I put it in the front of the book when I said I was going to give it to some archives. My first thought was the Jazz Archive at Tulane University, because one of their men came and stayed a week with us, and he loved it, but they didn't go any further than that. And then there were other archives. And so I've held on to this, but I've worried about what, my family would do with it, whatever. And then along came Jeff and these fellas and Carolyn, and they got this Oklahoma Historical Society to come down to little old Turkey, Texas, to the museum. They revamped that, they worked, and they helped with that Bob Wills Museum. And then they began to show a great interest in doing something with the material that I have. Now, a lot of people had talked, but nobody had walked until this Oklahoma Historical Society. Jeff and these people came down, and I've already turned over 150 tapes. It would go the length of this. Some of them live music. Any of you remember Bob Wills used to have dances, and he would play the same song twice because they didn't know enough songs. So they'd play, we'll just say they'd play Take Me Back to Townsend, and they 1, 2, 3, 4, and they'd start again. Everybody walk off. There was one of those tapes, Jeff, in there. That's the only one I know anywhere in the world where Bob was doing that. So there's some interesting things. But I've decided recently, and they've come by and to my house and looked over my collection, that here's where the Charles and Mary Townsend Bob Wills collection belongs. Is right here. And thank you. You may be seated. Class is not dismissed yet.
Mary, will you please stand?
Yeah, my boy. Here's a woman that traveled with me and the children and made all those many miles. I thanked them in the book, but you never can really thank them. So she supported this in many, many ways.
Thank you, Mary.
And she's only missed one. And incidentally, I want to invite all of you the last Saturday in April to Bob Wills Day in Turkey, Texas. There's just no place like it. Jody Nick says they have them everywhere, but there's none like that because that's what Bob wanted. Well, you know, you turned me loose on Bob. You see how when you turn me loose, you see how I smile and pick up. Well, that's what Bob Wills' music has always done. To you and your ancestors, when people were down in the Depression or World War II, Bob came on from WKY or KVOO or WP, and it just picked you up. You can't be sad and listen to Bob Wills' music. This poor man talking about bubbles in my beer. Why, if you'd given that to some singers, they'd have you crying. But he'd have you laughing. He was glad. So this is where I think it belongs, Bob.
Well, thank you so much, Dr.
I want to do one thing, if you don't mind.
Okay.
They were so great to me, I would change things, and God will understand this. Anybody said, and I would change this, and I'd add that, and so forth and so on. And so they finally wrote me a letter and said, now, Dr. Townsend, we've been more liberal with you. Pardon that expression. I meant musically. And then anybody but you're not going to add one more word. Well, then I got this story. And I sent it to them. They wouldn't let me use it. But I've got to share it with you since some of you have read the book or whatever. It happened in Las Vegas. And when Carolyn was up here talking about, I think it was out the old showboat. It wasn't down at the Nugget because the store wouldn't fit there. But they used to, they'd raffle off saddles, silver saddles, and whatever at the showboat and the sands, some of those old clubs, you know. And so they were at the showboat, and they were a raffle for for Oxford suit. Back then they were $650. My gosh, that would be $5,000 today. I mean, it was something. If you could say, look, of course, mine's Joseph A. Bank, but anyway, it was Oxford suit, and so they had it on a mannequin. And Luke Wills, I tell you, I love the man. He never had a serious thought in his life, and he'd do everything in the world. He'd put a whiskey bottle in his boot, have a straw coming up through here and giving everybody a suck on it. And Bob couldn't figure out where they're getting the whiskey. But anyway, on this occasion, I don't know whether Luke was... Luke didn't have to be drinking to have some fun. But he saw that mannequin, and he saw that Oxford suit. Bob's dressing room was over by the stage because Joe Venuti, the great fiddler, had a session called a set before Bob Wills, and Bob loved to lie there in his bed and watch Joe Venuti, and he thought was the ultimate with the fiddle. Of course, Bob really was. But in either case, Luke came up with the idea. Luke played bass, and Bob always said anybody can play bass. But and so Luke put the mannequin at the back where you have the bass, and put the hands of the mannequin on the bass. And they always kick off a song or two before the star comes home. So Bob was around where he couldn't see, and so he might have had a drink or two that night. I'm not sure about that. But either way, he was feeling pretty well, and but nothing ordinary, out of the ordinary. So Bob came on. They hit the band, hit San Antonio Rose or something, And Eldon told me Eldon always sat these guitars close to Bob. And Bob, he kept looking, the beat wasn't there. Bob couldn't play right so it just everything was off. And Eldon said, and he turned to him and he said, Eldon, who's that on the bass? And he said, Eldon said, I don't know him. Well, Bob kept trying to play. Finally, he turned to Eldon. Eldon, you tell that son of a bitch to play that beat. He's playing with Bob Wills. Thank you very much.
Stay where you are.
Yeah, you tell him he's playing with Bob Wills.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend. Generous offer. His collection is amazing. It's world class. The original tapes, the documents, the photographs, and he is going to work with us. We will be visiting with Mary and Dr. Townsend in their home. We will document the collection, know where it came from, and make sure that it's all processed.
I showed this to the boys the other day, Bob. When they came down, I interviewed Sam Gibbs, who was one of Bob's last managers, and he was John Lee's manager. And Sam Gibbs said, Dr. Townsend, I want to give you my complete file on Johnny Lee Wills. So I've got all of Johnny Lee Wills' contracts, everything. That's just an aside from some of them.
Well, thank you. And to wrap up tonight, we're going to do one more song, and I want Dr. Townsend to be here. Jeff, if you'll come up and introduce some other guests. This is our one-legged director here today, who broke his leg earlier in the year, but he's a good trooper working. And Jeff is going to introduce some folks to join us up on the stage. The musicians come on up, and we will wrap this up here with one more song.
Yes, we'd like the family to come up, Carolyn, Andrea, and members of the foundation. And we have some extra musical guests. A couple weeks ago, anybody go to the Eric Clapton show? We have Eric Clapton's drummer from Tulsa, Jamie Oldecker, who has donated his drum set that he used when he played for 15 years with Eric Clapton. He's going to join us on drums. Let's give a round of applause to Jamie.
Bob, let me say one more word, and that is this. And it's important to say. We talk about our collections, we talk about our books and everything, but the people who will do as much or more than anybody else to keep Bob Wills' music alive are the musicians themselves. The Willie Nelsons, the Asleep at the Wheels, the Johnny Gimbal's, the George Straits, and men like these here, young people that love Bob Wills. You're the ones that'll carry it on.
So it just seems appropriate that as we talk about the OKPOP Museum, the Oklahoma Historical Society, we finish the evening with Take Me Back to Tulsa.
Take me back to Tulsa.
said to meet her, she pulled down her petticoats and I pulled out for Tulsa. Yeah.
Take me back to Tulsa. I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa. I'm too young to marry.
Those twin fiddles, fellas. Well, we always wear a great big smile, never do look sour. We're the Red Dirt Rangers, we play music by the hour.
We'll take me back to Tulsa. I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa. I'm too young to marry. Won't you take me back to Tulsa? I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa. I'm too young to marry.
But we're in Tulsa, yeah!
The Red Dirt Rangers, Byron Berline, Dr. Townsend, the family, the foundation, thank you for coming out to join us tonight. Have a good evening.